Good afternoon, everyone. It's not really the opposition. So Aleksi and I have been debating this issue in several occasions during the past few months, and although we differ on some aspects of the matter, we don't differ in any fundamental way. I understand that the British way of debating society is to find really opposite positions that really engage each other in a bloody battle of ideas, but I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. There's not going to be anything like that tonight. Also, I have to apologize to Aleksi because he was in the unfortunate situation of speaking before me. So I was taking notes while he was speaking, and of course I can't avoid the temptation of trying to say a few words on what he said. He made 4 points, and let me say something of each of those 4 points. The first one was that the proposal for the Transatlantic Partnership Treaty is to be supported because it enshrines shared values between the United States and Europe, and because it leads to setting up a better international standard that reflects those shared values. Well, I disagree with both of those positions. In the first place, I don't think there are any shared values. I think Europe and the United States are very divided. I think the United States and Europe between themselves represent different ideals of life. Their histories are different, their political systems are different. The values of the electorate, say, in the US and Europe are different. That's not that important, however. More important, I think, is that both Europe and the United States are divided within themselves. These are not two harmonious societies representing some clearly definable, easily understandable values that are just for the good of everyone. No, we vehemently disagree. It's not always visible in our elections, for example, that we do. But as a matter of fact, we do. We disagree about how the economic system should be organized and how important the demands, so-called, of the economic system for politics in general should be taken. So I would say there is no shared set of values that harmoniously is going to be introduced to the world. No, it's some people win and other people lose. And the question is, whose side are you on? So that's my first point. My second point is, Aleksi said that there is this series of impact studies on how the families in Europe and the United States will be helped economically and otherwise, jobs and so on. Now, in the course of these 2 odd years or so, we've indeed seen a number of studies being produced, and I respect the economic experts who will be producing those studies. Now, one fact about those studies is that they go in all conceivable directions. So for every position regarding the TTIP, you can have an economic expert producing precisely the support of that position as well as the opposite of that position. That's in the nature of economics. It's political business out there. So it's not about, well, Aleksi said, well, all the credible experts have produced a single set of impact assessments. And of course, everything about that statement relies on who's credible and who decides what credibility is. I'm not going to engage in that. As I said, I have some respect towards economic expertise, and I listen to these people. But nevertheless, the point is that the issue of Transatlantic Partnership Treaty, or indeed of the economic globalization of which this will be a part, is not a technical issue. There is nowhere in the world a pre-existing algorithm that we would only have to seize in order to understand what the absolutely scientifically correct response should be. People disagree. I said already they disagreed on the values that the proposed treaty is expected to support. But they also disagree on the very techniques of what's going to happen. We don't know. It's an area of uncertainty. But if it's an area of uncertainty, then all of us are really called upon to rely on the political assessments that we have about how the world is, how it should be. What do we think about the thing people call globalization? More stuff, less stuff into the world. We are divided on those things. So, to the second point, Alexi's second point, I would say it's not about accepting some economic expert's impact assessment or deciding who's the credible assessor in the first place. It's about our basic values. It's about what we feel the direction of the world is, how it should be. How do we feel about globalization? Do we feel globalization an opportunity? Many of us do. And especially if we are at universities, we will be flying business class to highly paid conferences with our business partners. We are powerful men and women, and opportunities are for powerful men and women. But not everybody is a powerful man or a woman. And those people tend to think what powerful men and women see as opportunities as threats to them. And so I would just say, well, we have to fall back on these political assumptions. Questions, who are you for? What do you want the world to be like? What associations does a word such as globalization arouse in you? I leave it at that. The third point Aleksi said is that the threats have been exaggerated. That states can continue to regulate if they want. Well, but do they? So, of course, I agree with Aleksi. Technically speaking, I think it's probably the case that there is no dramatic imposition on states of standards that they would not accept at the outset. But that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies in, do we trust our states? Or is this the tremendous increase of power that the TTIP gives to the informal actors in the globalization world, the biggest companies in the world, the increase of negotiating power that it gives to those actors towards the states, whether the states are able to resist. In a moment I will say a few words on how I don't think they will resist. What the proposed treaty does do, however, technically speaking, is that once a state at one point elects a right-wing government, that right-wing government engages in privatization of X, Y, or Z, then you can no longer back down from that without paying the tremendous compensations that have to do with the ISDS system, to which I will go in a moment if I still have the time to get there. So the arbitration system set up by the treaty proposes that if you do let private investors to take care of, let's say, a part of your health insurance scheme, then you can no longer back down from that mistake. Oops, did I say that? That decision, that governmental decision that was taken once upon a time. The Czech government and the Slovakian government, the Slovenian government, I always get these mixed up, very embarrassing, are presently in court facing demands by private investors who have participated in the national health insurance schemes. When the government changed, the right-wing government was kicked out, the left-wing government set in, they backed down from the privatization schemes, badly found themselves in a court. So are the risks exaggerated? Again, well, what's exaggeration? It's a question of values. The last point Aleksi made, well, that the risks can be mitigated. The ISDS, the investor-state dispute settlement, to which I go for a few minutes, that can be improved. Well, yeah, things can be improved. So, of course, it's true that it's hard to take a position on a treaty that hasn't been signed and ratified, that hasn't even been negotiated. And if it has been negotiated, we don't know what the contents of it is. It's hard to take a position. And we can say, oh, well, these are well-educated treaty negotiators, and we should trust them. They are our men and women. EU Commission, surely they've had the best expertise in negotiating. Well, okay. So I have a couple of other points to make. I want to end with, in the 10 minutes or so that I have, by demolishing the idea that there should be an investor-state dispute settlement in this treaty. What I find the most dangerous aspect of this treaty is the proposal that disputes between foreign, that is to say, American investors in Europe, European investors in the United States, dispute between those investors and the state in which they operate should be lifted away from the national domestic legal system to be decided by a three-man, usually men, a couple of women, but usually men, panels in Washington or Geneva under rules set by the World Bank administered International Convention on the Settlement of Investment Disputes, ICSID. So I think if there's a dispute between a foreign investor and a state, then the domestic law should be applied. Why should an investor, some of these investors are the most powerful international actors there are, why should an investor be able to make a claim to a state and then take that state to a court to be decided under some other law? None of us has that opportunity in the way that's being proposed to. Some people say, well, we have a human rights system. I was like, do you really think that the problems that the human rights system deals with are similar to the problems that the investment treaty deals with? Is it true that torturing somebody and cutting into the profits of the company are analogous? Well, anyway, they are not analogous because if you are a human person, you're looking